Good morning, students. My name is John Kung, and I will be your math instructor for Math Skills 2. And the topic today is the order of operation. Now, what are the operations that we're talking about? Well, the four that you are very familiar with is addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Added to that, we're going to study parentheses and exponent. Now, exponent is something that you all may remember, but in case you don't, okay, the exponent number is that little guy on the top, and it has to be small enough so that it does not get confused with, if you write 2 too big, it may look like a 42. Of course, this is not 42. So, what does that little number mean? It's called the exponent. It means that you have to use the base 4 and you have to multiply by itself. There's 2 of them. That's going to give you 16. That's what the 2 means. It means you take the base, you're going to multiply 2 of them. Okay? So what about this? 2 to the 3rd power. This means 2 times 2 times 2. That's right. Always use the same base. How many of them you multiply? This is the number to indicate. Okay? 2 times 2, there's 3 of them. Okay? So this is going to be 8. So anytime you have, okay, for example, 5 to the 4th power. Of course, that means what? It means 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Okay? And that'll give you 625. Okay, so that is the explanation for exponent. Alrighty, now I think most of you know what this means. What does the parentheses mean? Parentheses means that you have to do what's inside first, okay, before you do anything else. So if I were to go like that, this means 5 plus 4 first before you consider the exponent. So it's going to be 9, and then you square it. This means what? 9 times 9, and that will be 81. Okay, let me give you another example of parentheses. Okay, so even though it's subtraction, okay, you're going to multiply. You're not going to multiply 2 times. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to simplify this first. 5 minus 1 is what? Is 4. And then you're going to multiply. Okay? So, sometimes you wonder what to do first when you see many multiplication, division, subtraction. Okay, so for example, you have 8 minus, divided by 4 plus 2 times 5. Okay, so what do you do first? Do you do multiply first, add, or divide? So that's what we want to learn today. Okay, so the order of operation, all right, when you see a lot of these symbols, okay, is going to be parentheses first, and then exponent. Now many of you might remember from your elementary school, and you have a rhyme to go with this. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Okay? And that's a way to remember these 6 different operations. Of course, M means multiply, D means divide, A means add, and S means subtract. Now, if we stick to this order strictly, we may run into some problems, and this is what I want to explain to you in this presentation, how to kind of tweak this, adjust it, change a little bit so that it follows how we do things in the college level. So for example, if you were to be given 8 divided by 4 times 2, okay, I'll give you a few seconds to figure out the answer. Okay, when you come to class, please make sure you have a pen and paper so you can always take notes and do some calculation like I'm asking you to do right now. Alright, now some of you may have the answer to be 1. Okay, how many have 1? Okay, a few of you. Some of you may have the answer 4. Okay, so which is correct? Usually half the people have 1, half the people have 4. But now math is an exact science, so it usually has one answer, not a vague possible answer. So let's see what happens here. If you follow this, well, there is no parentheses, there is no exponent, so you just move on to the next level. There is a multiplication and there is a division, okay? Now, from this, it seems to imply that you will multiply first before you divide. So if you did that, you will have 4 times 2 is 8, and then 8 divided 8 would be 1. Now, unfortunately, that's not the correct answer, okay? The answer is actually 4. And how did I get 4? Well, when you encounter multiplication and division in the same problem, you need to do what comes from the left first as you write. So 8 divided by 4 is 2, and then 2 times 2 gives you 4, and that is the correct answer. Okay, and same thing with addition, subtraction. If you were to, add, let's say subtract and add, okay, strictly speaking, if you add first, if you add 4 and 2, it would be 6, and then you subtract, it would be 2, but this would be wrong. Why? As I said, adding and subtraction, just like multiplication and division, they have the same priority. And when you encounter both, you have to do from the left to the right. So in other words, 8 minus 4 is 4, and 4 plus 2 is 6. So let us adjust this so that we don't run into trouble, okay, and make a mistake. So parentheses is always first. We will put that 1. Exponent is always second. You have to do that next. But when you have multiplication, division, we would put that on the same level. Okay. So the third priority is multiplication, division. And then the fourth priority is adding, comma, subtract, because they both have the same priority. And if you encounter both, you just go from the left to the right. Okay, so now let's see if we can remember, and I'll give you a couple of examples. 3 minus 1. Okay. So take maybe 30 seconds or a minute to see if you can get the correct answer. All right, well, as I do it, you can compare what your steps were, and then you can learn from your mistakes, or maybe you got it correct. The first thing we want to do is check whether there's any parentheses. That's always first, and we have 3 minus 1. So 3 minus 1 is 2. And my advice is, when you make a small change, then everything else remains the same. So write it down so you don't get kind of lost. Now the second rule is exponent. So do you see an exponent? Yes. This 2 is an exponent. So the exponent always tells you the base. The number, the big number that's already underneath. Take that big number and you multiply by itself that many times. Since it's square, 2 is there's 2 of them. So 2 of them would be a 4. Okay? Again, we continue to write what we didn't change. Okay? So we keep track. As you can see, it's 20 divided by 5 times 4 now, because 2 squares are 4. That's what we have here. Now at this point, you remember that when you have a division, and of course, this is a multiplication, parentheses and a number next to it indicates multiplication. Okay? Well, let me just remind you, if you have 5 and a 4 next to each other, that's a 54. However, if you have a parentheses, this means 5 times 4, which is a 20. Likewise, if you have a parenthesis around 5 and a 4 next to it, that's also 20. And even if you have parentheses next to both of them, and that's a 20. That is multiplication. So therefore, this is multiplication. But you don't want to multiply first. Why? Because we just learned that when you have multiplication division, you go from the left. So there is a division here. So you do that first. 20 divided by 5 is 4. And then you multiply with the 4. And the answer would be 16. Okay? So the answer to this problem is 16. Okay? All right, maybe we do another one. It may help to solidify what you learned. Remember, repetition is the mother of learning. The more you do something repeatedly, the more it's going to sink in to our cranium. So let's take another one. Perhaps 5 times plus 2 times 4 squared divided by 2. Okay, and maybe even a 4 plus 1 squared. All right, so now what we're going to do is look for parentheses if there's any. We see 4 plus 1, so that's a 5. Okay. Again, this will really help to keep track. Just write, okay, copy down what you have from the first step to the second. Things that did not change, you write it down. Something changed, you put the new change in there. Now we're doing what? Exponent. So you're not going to multiply, please. Don't multiply anything. Don't divide, because you have an exponent. What is 4 squared? It's 16. What is 5 squared? 25. So you keep writing down what you have left over. All right? You keep it like that. Okay? Does everybody see? Very clear, very simple step by step. Now, of course, you know, this looks like a parenthesis, but that's not the parenthesis we're talking about where you have to do something in the parentheses. Parentheses 25, there's nothing else you can do. Okay, so now you're going to look at multiplication and division. So don't do 5 plus 2 equals 7. That comes last. Remember, adding, subtracting comes last. So we want to multiply 2 times 16 is what? 32. Okay, and then we have a division. That's what comes next as we go from left to right. 32 divided by 2. Okay, and that will give me what? That will give me 16. And then I'm going to multiply with 25. Okay? And here's where your calculator comes in. Okay? So your calculator, when you multiply this, probably give you 4,000. Maybe 400. Sorry. My calculator in my brain sometimes a little bit off. And then now you're going to add 5. So the total answer to this is 405. Okay? All right, so I think you have enough to work with. All right, so just remember, parentheses first, exponent next, and multiplication, division has the same priority. And when you encounter both, you just go from the left to the right, whichever comes first. If division comes first, you do the division. If multiplication comes first, you do the multiplication. As you operate, do the operation from the left to the right. Same thing with add and subtraction. Okay? Good. Thank you very much.